Chapter 1. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When you are young, your mind is like wet cement. Every lesson, every story, every belief begins to shape who you will become. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, grew up with two fathers. One was highly educated, intelligent, and respected, his biological father. The other was less formally educated, but financially free, his best friend's father. These two men became his poor dad and his rich dad. Both men loved Robert deeply. Both worked hard, and both wanted the best for him. But the way they thought about money was completely different. And that difference made all the difference. The two fathers. Robert's real father, his poor dad, believed in the traditional path. Go to school, get good grades, find a secure job, and work hard until you retire. He had a PhD, a stable government position, and a deep respect for education. But despite his intelligence, he often struggled financially. He believed money was the root of all evil, and that talking about money was rude. His rich dad, his best friend's father, didn't finish 8th grade. Yet he owned businesses, invested in real estate, and understood how money worked. He taught young Robert a different rule. The lack of money isn't the problem. The lack of financial education is. That simple idea changed Robert's life forever. It started when Robert was only 9 years old. He wanted to make money, but he didn't know how. So he and Mike melted toothpaste tubes made of lead and tried to make fake nickels. Their experiment failed, but it sparked curiosity. They went to Mike's father, Rich Dad, for advice. Rich Dad didn't give them money. He gave them a lesson. He said, "If you want to learn how to be rich, you must learn how money works." And then he offered them a deal. Work for him, not for money, but for knowledge. At first, it didn't make sense. Why work without pay? But that's how Rich Dad taught. He wanted Robert and Mike to understand the difference between working for money and having money work for you. Working for lessons, not money. For weeks, Robert worked in one of Rich Dad's small stores, dusting shelves and arranging goods for 10 cents an hour. Soon, he got angry. He felt exploited. After all, his friends earned more delivering newspapers. Finally, he complained to Rich Dad, "You're not paying me enough." He smiled and said, "Good. Now you're starting to think like most people, blaming others instead of understanding the system." Then he added something that would echo through his entire life. Most people never study money. They work for it all their lives, but never learn how it works. Money controls them. He paused and said, "If you learn how money works, you can control it. And once you do, you'll be free." That was the moment Robert realized he had two fathers giving him two very different sets of advice. One told him to get a job and work for security. The other told him to build assets and work for freedom. The fear that controls us. Rich Dad explained that most people are trapped by two emotions, fear and greed. They fear not having money, so they work harder for a paycheck. When they finally get money, greed takes over. They want more, they buy more, they spend more. And so the cycle continues. Work, spend, worry, repeat. Rich Dad taught Robert that true financial freedom begins when you stop letting fear and greed control your decisions. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," learn to ask, "How can I afford it?" That single question changes your mindset from limitation to opportunity. The difference in mindset. Poor Dad always said, "Study hard so you can find a good job." Rich Dad always said, "Study hard so you can create jobs."
Poor Dad said, "I can't afford that." Rich Dad said, "How can I afford that?" Poor Dad said, "Our house is our greatest asset." Rich Dad said, "Your house is a liability if it takes money out of your pocket." Same situations, different mindsets. One builds wealth, the other builds dependence. Money as a tool, not a goal. Rich Dad wanted Robert to understand that money is a tool, not a measure of intelligence or success. He said, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. He wasn't saying that working is bad. He was saying that working only for money is a trap. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to learn business, investing, and how to make money even when you're not physically working. He explained the power of owning assets, things that generate cash flow, instead of collecting liabilities that drain it. He said, assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. That one simple definition became the foundation of Robert's financial education. Breaking the cycle. Most people never escape what Rich Dad called the rat race. It's a cycle of earning money, paying bills, taking on debt, and working harder to pay it off. Even when people earn more, they usually just spend more. Rich Dad's secret was understanding that escaping the rat race requires financial intelligence, knowing how to make money work for you, how to manage risk, and how to build passive income. He told Robert, if you learn this while you're young, you'll never have to fear being broke again. The real purpose of school. Poor Dad believed that school was the key to success. Get good grades, get a diploma, get a job. That was his path. But Rich Dad saw the flaw. He believed traditional education teaches people how to work for money, not how to make money work for them. He said, schools train employees, not entrepreneurs. That doesn't mean school is useless. It means that if you want financial freedom, you must seek financial education on your own. You must learn about money, how it moves, how it grows, and how it multiplies. A turning point. As Robert grew, he began to see the world differently. He noticed how people around him chased paychecks, promotions, and titles, but were always stressed about bills. He saw his poor dad, brilliant as he was, still struggling with debt. And he saw his rich dad, who understood money, building wealth, and opportunities for others. He realized success wasn't about working harder. It was about thinking smarter. The power of choices. Rich Dad taught that every person has a choice. You can be controlled by money, or you can learn to control it. You can live in fear, or you can live in freedom. You can follow the crowd, or you can study the rules of money and play your own game. He told Robert, the rich are not smarter. They just learn how money works, and they take action. Money is not the problem. One of the most powerful lessons from Rich Dad was that money itself is not the problem. The problem is the lack of understanding about money. You can win the lottery and still go broke if you don't know how to manage it. You can earn 6 figures and still live paycheck to paycheck if your expenses grow with your income. You can work your entire life and never achieve freedom if you never learn how money actually works. That's why Rich Dad told Robert, don't chase money. Learn to create value. The money will follow. The birth of financial education. As Robert grew, he realized that Rich Dad had given him something priceless, financial education. He had learned not from textbooks, but from experience. He had learned that money is a game, and if you don't learn the rules, you'll always lose to those who do. Rich Dad's teachings became the foundation for everything Robert would later share with millions. His lessons were simple, but life-changing. 1. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. 2. Financial education is more important than job security. 3. Assets create freedom. Liabilities create dependence. 4. Money is a tool. Learn to use it. Don't let it use you. Final reflection. As the chapter closes, Robert looks back and realizes that he was blessed with two fathers, two perspectives on life. His poor dad taught him the value of education and discipline. His rich dad taught him the power of financial intelligence and freedom. Both lessons mattered, but only one led to independence. He concludes that true wealth isn't about having a lot of money. It's about having control.
Chapter 2. The rich don't work for money. Money. For most people, it's the reason they wake up early, work long hours, and spend a lifetime chasing something they never seem to have enough of. But for the rich, money plays a very different role. This chapter begins with one simple truth that changed Robert Kiyosaki's life forever. Quote, "The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them." Unquote. It sounds simple, almost like a riddle, but behind it lies the foundation of financial freedom, understanding who controls whom. The young lesson. When Robert was just 9 years old, he worked for Rich Dad's convenience stores. He earned 10 cents an hour, doing small tasks, cleaning shelves, sweeping the floor, and helping with inventory. At first, it was exciting. He was finally making money. But after a few weeks, reality hit him. The work was boring, the pay was tiny, and his friends were out playing while he was stuck in a hot store. He began to feel angry, even cheated. So he went to Rich Dad to complain. He said, "You're not paying me enough. This isn't fair." Rich Dad smiled. He had been waiting for this moment. He told Robert, "You sound just like most of my employees, angry because they think I'm not paying them enough. But the problem isn't me, it's how they think about money." That day, Rich Dad gave Robert his most important lesson. Quote, "Life doesn't teach you with words, it teaches you by pushing you around." Unquote. If you learn from being pushed, you grow stronger and smarter. If you blame others, you stay weak. The trap of emotions. Rich Dad explained that when it comes to money, most people are controlled by fear and desire, the two emotions that dominate financial decisions. Fear keeps people working jobs they hate just to feel safe. Desire makes them spend what they earn, chasing comfort and pleasure. And so they get stuck, working, earning, spending, and worrying. It's a never-ending cycle called the rat race. Rich Dad told Robert, "Most people think they're controlling money, but in truth, money controls them. They get up every day thinking they're making choices, but really, their emotions are making those choices for them." Learning through experience. To make this lesson real, Rich Dad stopped paying Robert altogether. No more 10 cents an hour. Now he was working for nothing. At first, Robert was furious. But after a while, something changed. When the idea of a paycheck disappeared, so did the feeling of dependency. He started observing how people behaved when they feared losing money, how customers bought things they didn't need, how employees complained but never changed. One Saturday morning, while helping in the store, Robert had an idea. What if I created something that made money for me even when I wasn't there? He noticed that comic books were popular,
and piles of old ones were thrown away. So he and his friend Mike collected old comics and started a comic book library in Mike's basement. They charged 10 cents to read as many comics as they wanted for 2 hours. Soon, their business was making almost $9 a week, far more than what Robert earned for Rich Dad. It was his first experience of money working for him, and he never forgot that feeling. Seeing the world differently. Rich Dad praised Robert for his idea, but reminded him, don't get too excited about money. Get excited about how it works. He explained that most people spend their entire lives working for money because they're never taught to think beyond the paycheck. Schools don't teach it. Parents don't teach it. Society celebrates hard work, not smart thinking. That's why the poor and middle class often live trapped by financial stress, while the rich seem to get richer with less effort. The lesson of observation. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to look around and observe the patterns of life. He said, if you watch people closely, you'll see that fear and greed drive almost every financial decision they make. When fear increases, people cling to job security. When greed takes over, they chase quick profits and lose everything. That was true. When the economy was unstable, people panicked and hoarded money. When the market rose, people borrowed to buy more than they could afford. Both reactions were emotional, not logical. That's why Rich Dad said, if you want to be rich, you must master your emotions first. Don't let fear or greed dictate your actions. Why the rich don't work for money. Rich Dad explained that the rich don't need to work for money, not because they're lazy or privileged, but because they understand how to make money work for them. They build assets that generate income, businesses, real estate, stocks, royalties, while others work jobs that generate paychecks. He said, when you work for money, you give power to your employer. But when your money works for you, you take back that power. This doesn't mean never working. It means working to build systems, not just salaries. It means investing time in learning how to multiply money, not just earn it. Understanding true freedom. Poor Dad often said, find a job that pays well and offers good benefits. But Rich Dad said, a paycheck is a trap. It gives you comfort, but it also gives your boss control. He explained that every time you depend on someone else for your financial security, you give away a piece of your freedom. That's why the rich focus on independence, not employment. Robert realized that while most people dreamed of promotions and pay raises, Rich Dad dreamed of opportunities, ways to make money even while he slept. That is true financial freedom, when you are no longer trading your time for money. The fear of being broke. Robert once asked, but isn't it risky to stop working for money? Rich Dad replied, of course it's risky, but so is depending on a paycheck your whole life. He explained that fear of being broke is natural, but it should motivate you to learn, not to settle. He said, the difference between the poor and the rich isn't fear. Both feel it. The difference is how they handle it. The poor let fear stop them. The rich use fear to drive them forward. In other words, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting in spite of it. Money and the mind. Rich Dad often said, your mind is your greatest asset. If you fill it with financial education, opportunities will appear everywhere. If you fill it with fear and doubt, you'll only see obstacles. He taught Robert to spend time reading about investing, observing businesses, and studying how money moved. He said, When you understand how to make money without working for it, you'll never be poor again. The goal was not to become greedy, it was to become independent. The lesson of control. Rich Dad told Robert something profound. Quote, "When you realize you don't need a paycheck to survive, that's when you find freedom." Unquote. He wasn't saying you should quit your job tomorrow. He was saying stop depending on it mentally. Once you learn how to create income from assets, you no longer fear losing your job. You start to see the world differently, as a series of opportunities, not risks. That's why the rich invest even during recessions, while others panic. They don't see danger, they see value. Working to learn, not to earn. Rich Dad told Robert, "Don't work for money, work to learn." He explained that when you work only for money, you learn only one skill, how to be an employee. But when you work to learn, sales, communication, investing, leadership, you build skills that create wealth. Every skill you gain, he said, is a seed that can grow into an income stream later. That's why the rich often take jobs or roles that others wouldn't, not for the paycheck, but for the knowledge they'll gain. Breaking mental patterns. Robert began to see how society trains people to be dependent. From childhood, we're taught to fear mistakes, avoid risk.
Chapter 3. Why teach financial literacy? Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. That's how Robert Kiyosaki opens one of the most powerful lessons of his life. Because the truth is, many people make money, but only a few learn how to keep it. This chapter answers one simple question that every parent, teacher, and employee should ask. If schools don't teach us about money, then who will? And the answer, as Robert learned from his rich dad, is this: you must teach yourself, or life will teach you the hard way. The difference between being rich and staying rich. In America, millions of people earn big salaries, get promotions, buy homes, and still end up broke or deeply in debt. Why? Because they know how to make money, but not how to manage it. Rich Dad explained it this way: it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. That's the foundation of financial literacy. Understanding how money flows and how to direct that flow toward your future, not your fears. Assets and liabilities, the simple truth. Most people think they know what an asset is. They believe their house, their car, or even their savings account are assets. But Rich Dad challenged that idea. He said, an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but it's the heart of financial education. Your home, for example, may look like an asset, but if you have a mortgage, property taxes, maintenance, and no rental income, it's taking money out, not putting it in. That means it's a liability, not an asset. Robert remembered the shock of realizing this. Poor Dad always said, our house is our greatest investment. But Rich Dad saw through the illusion. He said, your house may give you pride, but it won't give you cash flow. Financial literacy begins when you stop confusing liabilities for assets. The cash flow pattern of the poor, middle class, and rich. Rich Dad loved to teach using simple diagrams. He drew 3 pictures for Robert, one each for the poor, middle class, and rich. The poor earn money and immediately spend it on expenses, rent, food, bills. Nothing is left. The middle class earn more money, but instead of building assets, they buy bigger houses, better cars, and more liabilities. Their expenses grow with their income.
The rich focus on acquiring assets first, investments, real estate, businesses that generate income to cover their expenses. Over time, their assets grow, and so does their freedom. It wasn't magic. It was a different way of thinking about money. Rich Dad said the poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them through their assets. Financial illusion. Society celebrates high income but ignores financial intelligence. We're taught to admire doctors, lawyers, and executives with six-figure salaries, but many of them live paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher level. They drive luxury cars, own big homes, and look successful, but behind the image is debt, stress, and no true wealth. Rich Dad called this the illusion of prosperity. He said most people don't want to be rich, they just want to look rich. Financial literacy cuts through that illusion. It's not about how you look, it's about how your money behaves when you're not working. The rule of money flow. Rich Dad explained that money is like water. It flows. And just like water, it can either flow toward you or away from you. He said the direction of your cash flow determines your destiny. If your money flows into assets, it multiplies. If your money flows into expenses and liabilities, it disappears. He taught Robert to track his own cash flow, no matter how small. Even a few dollars invested wisely could grow into something powerful if managed correctly. Financial literacy is not about earning more. It's about controlling the flow, so that over time money starts working for you, not against you. Understanding taxes and debt. Rich Dad explained another harsh truth. The rich understand taxes. The poor and middle class pay them. Most people don't realize how deeply taxes affect their financial lives. The rich use corporations, investments, and legal structures to minimize taxes and protect income because they learn the rules of money. He said, you don't have to cheat the system, you just have to understand it better than others do. While Poor Dad complained about taxes being unfair, Rich Dad studied how to legally reduce them. That's financial intelligence in action, using knowledge, not emotion, to protect your wealth. He also taught that debt can be either bad or good. Bad debt takes money from your pocket, like credit card bills or car loans. Good debt puts money in your pocket, like borrowing to buy an asset that generates income. To the financially illiterate, all debt looks dangerous. To the financially educated, debt is a tool. Why the rich get richer. The rich get richer because they play a different game, and they know the rules. They use money to buy or build assets that create more money. Then they reinvest those profits into new assets. Meanwhile, the poor and middle class spend their money on liabilities, hoping someday they'll have enough left to invest, but that day never comes. It's not about greed, it's about understanding leverage. Rich Dad said, when you have financial intelligence, opportunities find you. When you don't, even the best opportunity will pass you by. The role of financial education. Poor Dad had a PhD, but no financial education. Rich Dad had no degree, but a strong understanding of money, and that made all the difference. Rich Dad told Robert, money without knowledge is like water in a leaky bucket. Learn how to manage, grow, and protect your money before you earn more of it. Understand assets and liabilities. Build cash flow, not clutter. Because the moment you master financial literacy, you'll never fear being broke again.
Chapter 4. Mind Your Own Business. Imagine you're standing in a busy downtown street. People rushing to offices, checking emails, wearing suits. Everyone looks successful, but if you stop and ask, do you actually own something that makes you money while you sleep? Silence follows. This is exactly what Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad meant when he said, the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. This chapter is all about one simple but powerful idea: mind your own business. And no, Rich Dad didn't mean start ignoring your boss. He meant something deeper. Build and own your own assets even while you work for someone else. Kiyosaki recalls how, even when he worked full-time for the Marine Corps or Xerox, his real focus was building his own business portfolio, investments, small ventures, and real estate. That's what Rich Dad trained him to do. Keep your day job, but start buying or building assets that will one day replace your income. What does mind your own business mean? Rich Dad explains it simply. If you want to be rich, focus on your asset column, not your income column. Middle-class people get a paycheck, then pay their expenses, rent, bills, taxes, and what's left, usually nothing, goes to zero. Rich people use their income to buy assets, things that put money in their pocket. The difference between the rich and the poor isn't the size of their paycheck, it's what they do with it. Rich Dad said, the moment you receive your paycheck, you're standing at the crossroads of your financial future. One road leads to wealth, the other leads to endless work. The home ownership myth. In this chapter, Kiyosaki challenges one of the most common beliefs in America, that your home is your biggest asset. He says, your home is not an asset unless it pays you money. Yes, it gives you pride and comfort, but financially, it's a liability because it drains your cash every month, mortgage payments, maintenance, taxes, and repairs. Meanwhile, your neighbor might be renting, but investing in stocks or rental property, and that's what builds wealth over time. This idea shocked many readers, but Kiyosaki insists, until your home starts paying you, it belongs on the liability side of your balance sheet. How do the rich think differently? Most people focus on their job title, engineer, teacher, manager, but rich people focus on their asset list, real estate investor, business owner, shareholder. When Kiyosaki was young, he would often see his rich dad's office full of discussions about deals, properties, and companies. Rich Dad wasn't obsessed with salary. He was obsessed with cash flow. He taught, the rich buy assets. The poor only have expenses. The middle class buy liabilities they think are assets. That's why financial literacy matters, not just earning money, but understanding where your money goes. How to start minding your own business? If you're listening to this and thinking, I don't have extra money to invest, don't worry. Rich Dad started small too. He said, you don't need money to start, you need a plan and discipline. Here's how he advised to begin. 1. Track your spending. Know where every dollar goes. Awareness is the first step to control. 2. Save to invest, not to spend. Most people save to buy liabilities, new phones, vacations, cars. The rich save to buy assets. 3. Start an asset column. Even small investments, mutual funds, digital products, dividend stocks, or a side business count. 4. Protect your income. Learn about taxes and structures like LLCs or corporations that protect your wealth legally. More on that in the next chapter. 5. Keep learning. Every rich person Kiyosaki met was a lifelong student of money. Kiyosaki's turning point. In this chapter, Kiyosaki shares a real turning point. While working at Xerox, he realized he was working harder than ever, but his savings weren't growing. Then he remembered Rich Dad's words. You're working for Xerox, not for yourself. Start minding your own business. So he began investing in small condos and apartments, low-cost properties he could rent out. At first it was scary, but soon the rental income started covering his expenses. That's when he truly felt financial freedom begin. The moral? Even while you're an employee, you can think like a business owner. And the power of compound growth? When you invest in assets, you plant seeds. They grow quietly while you sleep. Every dollar that goes into your asset column starts working for you, creating more dollars. That's how the rich escape the rat race.
They build assets that generate passive income. Eventually, their assets make more money than their job, and they achieve financial independence. It doesn't happen overnight, but as Kiyosaki says, it starts the day you decide to mind your own business. Real-life application. Let's bring this idea to today's world. If you're listening in 2025, here's how mind your own business translates. Start a side hustle that can scale, like a digital store or content brand. Buy income-producing assets, ETFs, REITs, or even fractional real estate. Build skills that increase your value, sales, marketing, investing, coding. Create a personal brand or small company around what you know. And reinvest profits instead of upgrading lifestyle too soon. Because wealth doesn't come from working more hours. It comes from making your money work for you. The mindset shift. Rich Dad always reminded Robert, "Son, the moment you start working on your own business, you'll stop working for others." This is the foundation of wealth. It's not about greed. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose how you spend your time, where you live, and what you do with your life. Every paycheck you earn is a tool. You can use it to build someone else's dream or your own. So ask yourself, are you minding your employer's business, or are you finally ready to mind your own? Because the rich always do.
Chapter 5. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. Picture this. It's Friday evening. You've worked all week, you finally get your paycheck, and before you can even celebrate, a big chunk is already gone. Taxes. You didn't even see it leave. And yet, every month, it happens again, like clockwork. Ever wondered why the rich seem to pay less in taxes, even though they make way more money? This chapter reveals that secret. And trust me, once you understand it, you'll never look at your paycheck the same way again. The myth of taxes. When we were kids, most of us were taught that taxes are a way to help society, to fund schools, roads, hospitals, and public services. That's true, in part. But Rich Dad said something that changed Kiyosaki's life forever. Quote, "Taxes were originally meant for the rich, but ended up punishing the middle class." Unquote. Wait, what? Let's go back in time for a second. A quick history lesson. Before the 1900s, there were no personal income taxes in most countries. Governments taxed big corporations and the wealthy because they had the most resources. Ordinary people kept what they earned. But here's what happened. When politicians introduced the income tax, they sold it as a temporary tax on the rich to make things fair. People agreed. Then slowly, those taxes spread to everyone, the middle class, employees, and small business owners. Rich Dad explained, once people accepted the idea of taxes, governments realized they could take more and more. And who paid the price? The people who couldn't fight back, the middle class." Unquote. That's how the game changed. The rich adapted. The poor and middle class didn't. The rich adapt and win. When taxes started hitting hard, rich people didn't complain. They got smarter. They learned the rules of the game, the tax code. Rich Dad said, "The rich don't evade taxes. They legally avoid them by understanding the law." Unquote. They created corporations, legal entities that let them control money differently from ordinary employees. This is the key difference. An employee earns money, gets taxed first, and then spends what's left. A corporation earns money, spends first, and pays taxes on what's left. That's not cheating, that's understanding the system. The employee versus the corporation. Let's break it down simply. An employee earns $5,000, paid taxes, say 30%, equals $1,500. left with $3,500. Pay rent, bills, car loan, etc. A corporation earns $5,000, spend on business expenses, travel, car, insurance, marketing, etc., $3,000, pay taxes on remaining $2,000, say 20%, equals $400, left with $1,600 plus the benefits of all those expenses. The corporation gets to enjoy the same lifestyle, but with tax advantages. Rich Dad used to say, corporations are the rich man's best-kept secret. Now let's make it simple. A corporation is not just a big company like Apple or Amazon. Even a small business, like your online brand, real estate company, or consulting venture, can be a corporation. It gives you three powerful benefits. 1. Tax protection. You're taxed on profits after expenses. 2. Legal protection. The corporation owns your assets, not you personally. 3. Financial growth. You can reinvest profits back into the business tax efficiently. Rich Dad used his corporations for everything, from owning real estate to running small businesses. He didn't hide money, he just organized it differently. The financial education gap. Poor Dad, the educated government employee, worked harder when taxes went up. Rich Dad worked smarter, using the system, not fighting it. He always said, "The rules of money are written by the rich for the rich. The rest just play along." But Kiyosaki believed anyone could learn those rules, and that's exactly what this chapter teaches. The 4 pillars of corporate advantage. Rich Dad taught Kiyosaki the 4 things that corporations master, the things every wealthy person leverages. 1. Accounting. Understanding income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. 2. Investing. Knowing how to grow money. 3. Marketing. Creating demand for your product or idea. 4. Law. Using legal structures to protect assets and reduce taxes. The average employee avoids these subjects, thinking they're boring or complicated. The rich study them like their life depends on it, because it does. Building a financial fortress. Rich Dad explained that a corporation is like a fortress for your money. When you earn as an individual, you're exposed. One lawsuit, one tax mistake, one crisis, and everything can collapse. But when you earn through a corporation, your assets are protected inside that legal wall. He said, "If you own nothing personally, there's nothing for anyone to take." Unquote. That's why wealthy people own nothing but control everything. Their cars, houses, and investments are technically owned by their corporations, trusts, or holding companies. Example: how the rich use the system. Let's take a simple example: a real estate investor. John earns $10,000 a month through his real estate LLC. Here's how his money flows. He pays his accountant, property manager, and insurance through his company, all deductible. He drives a car used for business visits. The company pays for fuel and maintenance. He hosts client dinners, also a business expense. After all this, his taxable income drops to maybe $3,000. Then he pays 20% tax on that, just $600. A normal employee earning the same $10,000 might pay $3,000 in taxes. See the difference? The knowledge gap equals the wealth gap. How you can apply this today. You don't need to be rich to start using this power. Here's how to begin. 1. Start a small LLC or S-Corp. Even if it's a side hustle, it builds structure. 2. Separate personal and business finances. Use different bank accounts and cards. 3. Record all legitimate business expenses, travel, software, education. It adds up. 4. Hire a financial mentor or tax advisor, not a cost, an investment in freedom. 5. Keep reinvesting profits. Grow your business, buy assets, expand. Remember, the rich didn't start rich, they started smart. The power of protection. Rich Dad once said, "Most people are one accident or lawsuit away from losing everything." Corporations create a legal shield. They separate you from your money. If something goes wrong in business, your personal savings, house, and car are safe. That's why wealthy people sleep better at night. They play defense as smart as they play offense. The mindset of the rich. At the core, this chapter isn't just about taxes. It's about thinking differently. Poor dad worked harder when taxes went up. Rich dad worked smarter, using the system, not fighting it. He always said, "The rules of money are written by the rich for the rich. The rest just play along." But Kiyosaki believed anyone could learn those rules, and that's exactly what this chapter teaches. Real-world reflection. Think about big names today: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett. They pay a smaller tax percentage than most middle-class Americans, not because they cheat, but because their income comes from investments and corporations, not salaries. You can do the same. Start small, think big, and build legal structures that work for you, not against you. Key takeaways. 1. Taxes were meant for the rich, but now burden the middle class. 2. Corporations protect and multiply wealth legally. 3. Employees pay taxes before spending. Corporations spend before taxes. 4. The rich study accounting, investing, marketing, and law, not just degrees. 5. The system rewards creators, investors, and innovators. Motivational closing. Rich Dad's voice echoes. Don't fight the system. Learn the system. Then use it to win.
Chapter 6. The Rich Invent Money. Picture this. You're walking down a busy city street. Two people pass by the same opportunity, a for sale sign on a small apartment building. One says, "I can't afford it." The other says, "How can I afford it?" Same situation, different question, different future. That's what Rich Dad meant when he said, the rich don't wait for money to show up, they invent it. This chapter isn't about printing money. It's about creating opportunities. It's about training your mind to see possibilities where others see problems. In the Appriss, The Secret Power of Financial Intelligence. Rich Dad always said, money is an idea. And the faster you learn that, the faster you start thinking like the rich. Financial intelligence isn't just knowing how to count money. It's knowing how to make money multiply. It's what separates someone who goes broke after winning the lottery from someone who turns $1,000 into a fortune. Robert's Rich Dad broke it down into 4 parts of financial intelligence. 1. Accounting, understanding numbers and how they tell a story. 2. Investing, knowing how to use money to make more money. 3. Market understanding, recognizing opportunities before others do. 4. Law, using rules and systems to protect and grow wealth. When you master these, you don't wait for luck, you create it. The difference between the poor and the rich. Poor Dad always said, work hard, get a safe job. But Rich Dad said, use your brain to create value. Poor people often say, I can't afford it. That phrase shuts down their brain. Rich people ask, how can I afford it? That opens the mind and sparks creativity. The rich aren't smarter. They just think differently. They focus on opportunities, not obstacles. The birth of an entrepreneur.
Kiyosaki recalls a moment when he and his friend Mike were broke teenagers. They had no money, but Rich Dad challenged them. You don't need money to make money. You need ideas. At first, they didn't understand. Then they started noticing simple things: used comic books, empty bottles, small ways to create value. They learned that opportunity doesn't knock, it whispers. You just have to be listening. That mindset later helped Kiyosaki turn low-value assets into high-return investments because he trained his brain to see money everywhere. The foundation. Opportunity is everywhere. The world is full of opportunities, even in tough times. Rich Dad said, "The problem is not lack of opportunities, it's lack of vision." In every economic crisis, people panic. They sell assets, quit jobs, and stop investing. Meanwhile, the rich quietly buy because they know every crash is a sale on the future. During recessions, rich people don't sit still. They invent money by taking calculated risks. Think about it. In 2008, when real estate crashed, the rich bought property cheap. In 2020, when markets dropped, smart investors bought stocks that later doubled. The rich aren't lucky, they're prepared. Knowledge equals power and profit. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad believed that education is the ultimate leverage. Not school education, financial education. He said, "The more you know, the more you see. The more you see, the more you can seize." He taught Robert to read financial statements, study market trends, and understand business models. That knowledge allowed him to spot undervalued assets and turn them into cash flow. It's like learning a new language. Once you speak money, the world looks different. Thinking outside the box. This chapter emphasizes creative thinking, the kind that most schools never teach. Schools reward memorization and perfection, but in the real world, innovation wins. Rich Dad encouraged mistakes because mistakes lead to insight. He'd say, "Every time you fail, you learn one more way not to fail again." Poor Dad saw failure as shame. Rich Dad saw failure as tuition, the cost of learning the real rules of money. That's how the rich invent money. They don't follow the crowd. They think differently, test ideas, and learn fast. Real-life example: the deal maker. Kiyosaki shares how he once found a house listed for $75,000 in a slow market. Most buyers ignored it, but he saw potential. He offered $60,000. The seller accepted. Within a few months, he sold it for $95,000. That's $35,000 profit without using much of his own money. Did he get lucky? No, he saw what others didn't. That's the power of financial creativity, seeing opportunity hidden in plain sight. The formula for inventing money. Rich Dad explained it like this: financial intelligence plus courage equals wealth creation. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're too scared to act, it's useless. And you can be brave, but without knowledge, you'll make costly mistakes. The rich balance both. They study hard, think critically, and act decisively. They invent money through three main levers. 1. Buying undervalued assets. 2. Creating products or systems that generate income. 3. Using other people's money to grow faster. It's not magic, it's mastery. Building financial muscles. Rich Dad told Robert, "Every deal you make, successful or not, builds your financial muscles. At first, small deals teach lessons. Then bigger deals come naturally. It's like lifting weights. You start with what you can handle, and over time, you get stronger." He compared the poor mindset to someone who never enters the gym, waiting until they feel ready. But readiness never comes. Courage comes first. Confidence comes later. The art of creating money out of ideas. Let's think modern. Today, we see people creating wealth through digital products, apps, content, and brand licensing. They didn't need millions to start. They needed an idea and execution. That's the same principle Rich Dad taught decades ago. You don't need money to make money. You need financial imagination. Kiyosaki says, opportunities are seen with the mind, not the eyes. You can have the same tools, same internet, same economy, but your mindset defines what you create. Risk versus reward. Poor Dad said, don't take risks. Rich Dad said, learn to manage risk. The truth is, everything has risk, but financial education reduces it. The rich study, prepare, and act when others freeze in fear. When someone says, that's too risky, a rich mind asks, how can I make it less risky? That small shift turns fear into fuel. Money loves speed. This chapter also talks about the speed of action. Opportunities have expiration dates. While the average person hesitates, the rich move quickly because they've trained their minds to recognize patterns. Rich Dad taught that when your gut and your knowledge align, don't wait. Fortunes are made by those who take educated, timely action. From scarcity to abundance. Poor Dad believed there's only so much money to go around. Rich Dad believed money is infinite because ideas are infinite. That's the abundance mindset. Money flows to those who create value. When you start solving problems for others, you automatically attract income. Rich Dad said, money follows value. Create value, and money will chase you. Real-world reflection. Look at modern innovators, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Mark Cuban, or Gary Vee. They didn't just work for money. They invented it by creating ideas, products, and platforms that didn't exist before. The same principle applies to anyone today. You don't need billions. You just need the ability to see opportunity and act before others do. How to develop this skill. Here's how you can start inventing money today. 1. Read financial books and case studies. Learn from how others built wealth. 2. Surround yourself with smart thinkers. Network with people who challenge your comfort zone. 3. Start small projects. Even small wins teach big lessons. 4. Observe problems in daily life. Every problem is a potential business idea. 5. Act fast, fail fast, learn faster. Momentum matters more than perfection. The mindset shift. Rich Dad's most powerful line from this chapter is, the moment you say, I can't do it, your brain shuts down. The moment you ask, how can I do it, your brain wakes up. That one shift.
Chapter 7. Overcoming Obstacles. In life, everyone dreams of being rich. But as Robert Kiyosaki explains, wanting to be rich and becoming rich are two completely different things. It's not the lack of money that stops people. It's the obstacles in their minds. In this chapter, Overcoming Obstacles, Kiyosaki dives deep into the biggest roadblocks that keep most people trapped in financial struggle and how the rich break through them. Rich Dad once told Robert, the primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. Let's unpack that and explore how you can rise above fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance to achieve the financial life you deserve. X character, 1. The first obstacle, fear. Everyone feels fear. The rich, the poor, the successful, and the struggling. But what separates winners from losers is how they handle fear. Poor Dad taught Robert to avoid risk, to play it safe, to get a stable job, to never lose money. Rich Dad, on the other hand, said,
If you want to be rich, you must learn to manage risk, not avoid it. The fear of losing money is one of the most powerful emotions that controls human behavior. Most people are so afraid of failure that they never even try. But think about this. If you never try, you've already failed. Kiyosaki explains that losing money is part of learning, just like falling when you're learning to walk. You don't stop walking after one fall. You get up, learn balance, and move forward. Rich Dad called money a game. And in every game, you win some, you lose some. But those who keep playing, keep learning, are the ones who ultimately win. The poor focus on not losing. The rich focus on winning. When you let fear guide you, you'll always work for someone who conquered theirs. So, Kiyosaki's message is clear. Don't let fear stop you. Let it teach you. X character 2. The second obstacle. Cynicism. Cynicism is the voice in your head that says, it won't work. It's too risky. What if you lose everything? It's the same voice that kills dreams before they even start. Kiyosaki says, doubt is expensive. Cynics never win because they never take the first step. You'll often hear them say, real estate is risky. The stock market is gambling. Starting a business is too dangerous. But the truth? Every opportunity carries risk, and every risk carries potential reward. Rich Dad used to laugh and say, the cynics criticize, the rich analyze. When someone tells you it's too risky, ask them, have you tried it? Most of the time, the answer is no. Cynicism is contagious. It spreads fear. But curiosity spreads opportunity. So instead of asking, what if I lose? Start asking, what if I win? X character 3. The third obstacle, laziness. When people think of laziness, they imagine doing nothing. But Kiyosaki explains that busy people can be lazy too. Yes, you heard that right. Many people stay busy to avoid dealing with the truth. They'll say, I don't have time to invest, or I'm too busy working to start something new. That's not productivity, that's disguised laziness. Rich Dad said, busy people are often the laziest. They stay busy to avoid important things. True laziness isn't about being inactive, it's about avoiding responsibility. Kiyosaki realized that the antidote to laziness is not more work, it's passion. When you find something that excites you, a goal that drives you, energy naturally follows. So ask yourself, what would I do if money wasn't the issue? What excites me enough to get up early and work late? When you find your why, laziness disappears. X character 4. Bad habits. Habits build your future, good or bad. And Rich Dad often reminded Robert, your habits decide your destiny more than your education ever will. Poor Dad had the habit of paying everyone else first, bills, taxes, and expenses, and saving whatever was left. But there was never anything left. Rich Dad had the opposite habit, pay yourself first. He made it a rule to invest in his assets even before paying bills. That forced him to think creatively, earn more, and stay disciplined. At first, Robert found this hard, but soon he realized that this habit wasn't about money, it was about self-respect. Paying yourself first tells your mind, I come first. My future matters. So, if you want to be rich, start with habits. Save before you spend, learn before you buy, build before you borrow. Because your habits are the foundation of your financial house. X character 5. The fifth obstacle, arrogance. Perhaps the most dangerous obstacle of all is arrogance, the illusion that you already know everything. Kiyosaki admits that arrogance has cost him a lot of money. Every time he thought he was too smart to learn, the market humbled him. Rich Dad's advice was simple. Arrogance is the combination of ignorance and ego. The poor stay poor because they think they know enough. The rich keep getting richer because they know there's always more to learn. In the world of money, humility is power. Because when you admit what you don't know, you stay open to growth. So, next time someone offers advice, don't dismiss it, ask questions, learn, adapt. Because even one small idea can change your entire financial future. X character 6. Lessons from real life. To illustrate these obstacles, Kiyosaki shares real-life examples. He talks about people who wanted to invest but never did because of fear. About friends who mocked his real estate ideas only to regret it years later. About people who worked hard all their lives yet ended up broke, not because they were unlucky, but because they refused to change their mindset. Rich Dad always said, the world doesn't reward smart people. It rewards people who act. So, the key is not to wait for perfect conditions. They'll never come. You must act despite fear, despite doubts, despite imperfection. X character 7. How to conquer these obstacles step by step. Kiyosaki offers a few practical steps to help you move forward. 1. Acknowledge the fear. Don't pretend you're fearless, accept it, and move through it anyway. 2. Educate yourself. Knowledge reduces risk. Read, listen, and observe how money moves. 3. Take small risks. Start with low-cost investments or side hustles. The point is to start. 4. Build discipline. Create a saving and investing routine. Stick to it, even when it's tough. 5. Stay humble. Learn from mistakes, yours and others. 6. Surround yourself with doers, not doubters. Energy is contagious. Stay close to people who inspire action. X character 8. The real secret to success? Persistence. Rich Dad believed that persistence beats talent, education, and luck combined. When things go wrong, and they will, persistence keeps you going. When deals fail, when you lose money, when people mock your choices, persistence separates the winners from the quitters. Kiyosaki says, you're not defeated when you lose. You're defeated when you quit. Every obstacle is temporary, but quitting makes it permanent. Money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies who you already are. If you're brave, it makes you braver. If you're fearful, it magnifies your fear. So, learn to master your emotions before you master your money. Because once you conquer yourself, fear, doubt, laziness, arrogance, the world opens up to you. X character 9. Final words. Turn obstacles into opportunities. At the end of this chapter, Robert reflects on how every challenge he faced became a stepping stone. The times he was broke taught him creativity. The times he failed taught him discipline. The times he was scared taught him courage. Rich Dad used to say, the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the opportunity. So, instead of avoiding difficulties, start asking, what is this trying to teach me? The moment you see obstacles as lessons, you'll realize that the universe isn't against you, it's training you. Fear will test you, doubt will whisper. Laziness will
Chapter 8. Getting Started. You've read about the mindset. You've learned how the rich think differently. You've seen how they face fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. Now comes the question that echoes in every listener's heart. Okay, I understand the philosophy, but where do I start? This chapter is your answer. It's where Robert Kiyosaki, guided by his rich dad,
breaks down exactly how to begin your journey to financial freedom. Not someday, not when you have money, but now. The Rich Dad Formula. Action before perfection. Most people never get started because they're waiting for the right time, the right job, the right salary, the right savings, the right economy. But Rich Dad said, there is no perfect time. The right time is when you decide. The poor wait for conditions to be safe. The rich create conditions by taking action. That's why this chapter focuses on 10 practical steps anyone can take, no matter where they are, to start moving toward wealth. Step 1. Find your why, the power behind your purpose. Rich Dad believed that wealth creation isn't a financial journey, it's an emotional one. He said, if you don't have a strong reason, you'll quit when things get tough. You need a purpose so strong it pulls you forward. Robert's why was freedom. He wanted to live life on his own terms, not be trapped in a job, paycheck, or boss's approval. Maybe your why is your family. Maybe it's time freedom. Maybe it's breaking the cycle of financial struggle. Write it down. Read it daily. Because when your why is strong, your how becomes unstoppable. Step 2. Choose to learn, not to earn. Most people chase higher salaries. Rich people chase education. Rich Dad said, don't work for money, work to learn. Every job, every project, every side hustle should teach you a skill. Sales, marketing, communication, negotiation, investing, or leadership. Robert worked for free for Rich Dad at first, not for cash, but for knowledge. When you focus only on money, you'll quit when you don't get paid enough. But when you focus on learning, every experience becomes valuable. Step 3. Pick your heroes and study them. You become like the people you admire. That's why Rich Dad advised, surround yourself with winners, even if it's only in your mind. Study the greats, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, but also local business owners and quiet investors who've mastered financial independence. Robert would read biographies, attend seminars, and watch how successful people thought. He realized that success leaves clues, and all you have to do is follow them. Don't just admire, analyze. Ask yourself, what habits do they have that I can adopt? Step 4. Master a single skill. Rich Dad was clear. The most powerful skill in business is sales. Because if you can't sell ideas, products, or yourself, your dreams will stay hidden. Kiyosaki's turning point came when he joined Xerox to learn sales. He hated it at first, rejection, cold calls, failure. But within a few years, he became one of their top salesmen. That skill became his superpower. Whether it's sales, marketing, investing, or leadership, master one core skill deeply. It becomes your foundation for wealth. Step 5. Pay yourself first. We heard this before, but this chapter doubles down on it. If you cannot control your own money, you cannot control your future. Most people pay everyone else first, bills, rent, taxes, and save what's left. That's why they never have enough. Rich Dad flipped the rule. Pay yourself first. Even if it's 10% of your income, put it aside for investments before you touch anything else. Yes, you'll feel pressure. Yes, you might fall short on bills sometimes. But that's the point. Pressure creates creativity. You'll start finding new ways to earn more. The habit of saving and investing builds the muscle of financial discipline. Step 6. Choose your friends carefully. Rich Dad said, don't spend your time with people who tell you it can't be done. You don't have to cut off your old friends, but you must choose your circle intentionally. There are two kinds of people in the world: those who inspire you and those who drain you. The poor surround themselves with people who complain. The rich surround themselves with people who challenge them. Robert learned to hang out with investors, business owners, and thinkers. He wasn't the smartest in the room, and that's why he grew. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Step 7. Pay for education, not for entertainment. Rich Dad believed in paid learning. He said, most people spend more on entertainment than on education, and they wonder why they're broke. He encouraged Robert to invest in seminars, books, mentorships, and courses that improve financial literacy. Knowledge compounds faster than money. When you learn something valuable, it can pay you for life, not just once. So instead of buying that new gadget or subscription, invest in something that increases your earning potential. Step 8. Choose your words and thoughts wisely. Rich Dad caught that words have power, especially the ones you say to yourself. Poor Dad often said, "I can't afford it." Rich Dad said, "How can I afford it?" That one change in phrasing turns limitation into curiosity. Your brain starts finding solutions instead of excuses. So replace "I can't" with "I'll learn." Replace "I'm broke" with "I'm building." Replace "I don't know" with "I'm figuring it out." You are what you repeatedly tell yourself. Your language becomes your reality. Step 9. Stop doing what doesn't work. Einstein once said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results." Rich Dad lived by this principle. He constantly tested new strategies, and if something didn't work, he pivoted fast. He told Robert, "The world changes fast. Don't get attached to methods, get attached to results." If your job, investment, or business isn't moving you forward, analyze it. Don't complain, correct course. The rich adapt, the poor repeat. That's why flexibility is a superpower in the financial world. Step 10. Give and you shall receive. This final step surprises many readers, but Rich Dad's philosophy was deeply rooted in generosity. He said, if you want something, give it first. If you want money, give value. If you want knowledge, teach what you know. If you want respect, show respect first. Giving creates flow. Money is energy. It moves toward those who move it. Robert noticed that every time he helped others, through mentoring, donations, or sharing insights, opportunities multiplied for him. The poor think giving means losing. The rich understand giving means growing. The practical start. After hearing all these steps, Robert asked Rich Dad, "So what do I actually do tomorrow morning?" Rich Dad smiled and said, "Start with what's in your control. Think bigger, act smaller." Here's what that meant. Read one financial page or article daily. Track your expenses every week. Save a small portion before paying bills. Talk to one new person about business or investing every month. Learn something that improves your financial intelligence every week. These small actions compound into massive change. It's about becoming, not earning. Rich Dad said the goal isn't just to have more money, it's to become the kind of person that attracts money. Rich Dad said, money follows value, and value comes from who you become. The poor chase money, the rich chase growth, and as they grow, money chases them. Robert realized that the real transformation wasn't financial, it was psychological. He stopped thinking like an employee and started thinking like an entrepreneur. That mindset shift changed everything. The challenge of the real world.
Let's be honest. Even after learning these steps, most people won't follow them. Why? Because they'll say things like, I don't have time, it's too risky, I'll start next month. But those are the same excuses that keep millions stuck for life. Rich Dad said there are two kinds of people, those who make excuses and those who make progress. Which one are you becoming?
Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some taboos. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. After 8 chapters of powerful financial lessons, Robert Kiyosaki doesn't end his book with theory, he ends it with action. This final chapter is a call to arms, an invitation to take control of your financial destiny. He knows that knowledge without action is useless. You've learned how the rich think, how they make money, and how they see opportunities. Now it's time to put that wisdom to work in your own life. Number 1. Knowledge is only power when used. Kiyosaki begins by reminding us, education is the foundation, but application builds the empire. Most people finish books, feel inspired for a few days, and then go back to their same routines. They read about wealth, but they never act wealthy. They understand assets and liabilities, but they never buy their first asset. Rich Dad used to tell him, quote, "There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path," unquote. The real learning starts after you step out into the real world. When you take risks, make mistakes, and try to build something, that's when financial intelligence becomes real. So Kiyosaki challenges you. Don't just listen to this book, live it. Number 2. 10 powerful steps to ignite your financial journey. In this chapter, he gives 10 concrete to-dos that can transform anyone from a dreamer into a doer. Let's go through them one by one. Step 1. Find a reason greater than reality. If your why is weak, your willpower will collapse. Why do you want to be rich? Is it freedom? Is it to spend more time with your family? To escape debt? To travel? Kiyosaki says, quote, "Without a strong reason, you'll quit when life gets hard," unquote. When your motivation is powerful, when you can clearly see the life you want, your brain will find ways to achieve it. So write down your reason. Say it every morning. Let it drive your actions. Step 2. Choose daily. Becoming rich isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily choice. Every day, you either build assets or buy liabilities. You either learn or waste time. Every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for your financial future. So ask yourself daily, is this making me richer or poorer? Those small daily choices define your destiny. Step 3. Choose friends carefully. Your environment shapes your mindset. If your friends only talk about Netflix and weekends, you'll slowly become like them. If your friends talk about investments, startups, and growth, your mind will shift too. Rich Dad once said, quote, "Don't listen to poor or frightened people," unquote. Surround yourself with dreamers, investors, and learners. You don't have to cut people out, but you must guard your mental space. Step 4. Master a formula, then learn a new one. Many people find one way to make money and stop learning. That's where they stagnate. The rich are constant learners. They master one income stream, then move on to the next. They learn about real estate, stocks, business, online income, always exploring. Kiyosaki encourages you to become a student for life. The moment you stop learning, your financial growth freezes. Step 5. Pay yourself first. This is one of the strongest lessons from the book. Before paying bills, before buying things, pay yourself first. Invest a portion of your income into assets that will grow your wealth. Even if you're short on cash, especially then, pay yourself first. Rich Dad said, quote, "Poor people pay everyone else first and wonder why they're broke. Rich people pay themselves first and find ways to pay the rest," unquote. It's about developing discipline. When you commit to saving and investing, you'll find creative ways to manage everything else. Step 6. Pay your brokers well. This might sound strange, but Kiyosaki explains it clearly. If someone is helping you make money, a real estate agent, a broker, a mentor, pay them well. Good professionals save you time and prevent costly mistakes. The poor often try to save every penny, but the rich invest in expertise. Knowledge and professional guidance often lead to much bigger profits in the long run. Step 7. Be an Indian giver. This old phrase means get something valuable in return when you give something. When you invest in a business, expect it to return your initial money. Then let it keep generating more. For example, if you buy stocks worth $1,000 and they rise to $2,000, withdraw your original $1,000 and let the profit keep working for you. This way you play with house money, not your own. That's how smart investors grow without risking their foundation. Step 8. Use assets to buy luxuries. The middle class buys luxuries first. The rich buy assets first and then use the income from those assets to buy luxuries. That's the difference between instant gratification and delayed wealth. Rich Dad used to say, quote, "If you want something nice, make your assets buy it for you," unquote. Before buying that new car or watch, ask, can one of my investments pay for this? If yes, you've earned it. If not, it's a liability. Step 9. Choose heroes. Heroes give us models to follow. Robert admired Warren Buffett, his rich dad, and other successful entrepreneurs. When you study great people, you learn their mindset, how they think, how they solve problems, and how they handle fear. He says, quote, "When I feel lazy or afraid, I ask, what would my hero do right now?" Unquote. Having a hero rewires your mind for success. Step 10. Teach and you shall receive. When you teach something, you understand it better. Share what you learn. Talk about money. Teach your kids or mentor someone. The more you give, the more confident and knowledgeable you become. Kiyosaki says, quote, "The more I teach, the more I learn," unquote. This also builds your network and attracts opportunities, because when you teach, you become valuable. 3. The real power of financial freedom. At this point, Robert reminds us that financial freedom isn't about owning fancy cars or big houses. It's about control. Control over your time. Control over your choices. Control over your future. Money, when managed wisely, becomes a tool for independence, not slavery. He urges readers to visualize their ideal life and then design it, not through luck, but through daily financial intelligence. 4. The trap of fear and cynicism. Even after all of this, most people will never act. Why? Because of fear. Fear of losing money, fear of looking foolish, fear of failing. Kiyosaki says the real difference between the rich and poor isn't money, it's how they handle fear. The rich face it, learn from it, and move forward. The poor avoid it and stay stuck. Quote, "Winners are not afraid of losing, but losers are," unquote. So the final challenge, step into your fears, and you'll step into your power. 5. Start small, but start now. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Don't wait to have more money. Start where you are. Read one financial book, attend a seminar, buy a small stock, invest in yourself. The earlier you begin, the more your financial intelligence compounds. Kiyosaki's mantra, quote, "It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for." 6. The legacy of Rich Dad's lessons. As the book comes to a close, Robert reflects on how both of his fathers changed his life. His poor dad gave him education, security, and love, but believed in working for money. His rich dad gave him financial education, courage, and the mindset to make money work for him. Both were important, but only one showed the path to freedom. And now, through this book, that wisdom is passed to you. 7. Final message. You are the CEO of your own life. No one is coming to save you. No job, no government, no degree guarantees wealth. But the moment you take responsibility for your money, your future begins to change. Quote, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better." Unquote. Take charge, learn daily, build assets, teach others. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary. Edio, Motivational Outro. This isn't just a book summary, it's your roadmap. You've learned the lessons, now it's time to live them. The world doesn't need more dreamers, it needs doers, people like you, ready to rise, learn, and lead. So take the first step today. Invest in your mind, in your assets, in your future. Because as Rich Dad said, quote, "The rich don't work for money, they make money work for them." Unquote.
Chapter 10. Final Thoughts. As the book draws to its close, Robert Kiyosaki leaves us not with an ending, but with a beginning. The start of your financial freedom journey. He reminds us that everything we've read so far, every lesson, story, and mindset means nothing unless it leads to action. Because financial success isn't about how much you know, it's about what you do with what you know. Number 1. The two choices everyone has. Robert says that every person in life stands at a crossroads with two choices. The first path is the safe one, the one society teaches you. Go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, and retire someday. It feels comfortable, but it often leads to financial struggle. The second path is the path of freedom, the one the rich take. Learn how money works, build assets, take risks, and let your money work for you. Most people never even see that second path, not because it's hidden, but because their minds have been trained to ignore it. Rich Dad opened Robert's eyes to it, and now, through this book, he's opening yours. Number 2. What makes the rich truly different? It's not luck, it's not inheritance, it's not even high-paying jobs. The rich are different because they think differently. They see opportunities where others see problems. They take calculated risks while others play safe. They build systems that work even when they sleep. Rich Dad used to say, "You become what you study." If you study money, how it flows, grows, and multiplies, you'll eventually master it. But if you avoid learning about it, you'll always work for those who did. Number 3. The real definition of wealth. Robert redefines wealth not as a number, but as freedom of time. He asks, if you stopped working today, how long could you survive? That number, whether it's a week, a month, or a lifetime, is your true measure of wealth. The rich focus on building income that keeps flowing even when they're not working. Passive income. Money should work harder for you than you work for it. So the goal isn't just to earn money, it's to buy time. Time for your family, your dreams, your peace of mind. Number 4. Why financial education is the ultimate power. Throughout the book, one message stands taller than all. Financial education is the key to freedom. Schools teach us how to work for money, but not how to make money work for us. They teach us how to avoid mistakes, not how to learn from them. Kiyosaki says, money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. You can win the lottery, get a high-paying job, or even inherit millions, but without financial literacy, it disappears. That's why financial education isn't optional, it's survival. Learn how to read financial statements. Understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Know how to invest, protect, and grow your wealth. Every bit of knowledge builds a stronger foundation for your financial independence. Number 5. The courage to start small. Many people delay taking action because they feel they need more money, more time, more confidence. But Kiyosaki says the most powerful step you can take is to start small. Start now. Buy one small stock. Read one book about investing. Start one side business. Even a tiny seed can grow into a massive tree, but only if it's planted. Remember, Rich Dad started with almost nothing. What he had was not money, it was courage and curiosity. Number 6. The fear of losing is the real enemy. One of the most important lessons Kiyosaki emphasizes here is this: you will fail. You will lose money, you will make mistakes. But those are not the reasons to quit. They're part of the process. Quote, "Winners are not people who never fail. They are people who never quit." Fear stops most people from ever becoming rich. They fear losing money more than they desire freedom. But every mistake teaches you something valuable, something no classroom ever could. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to success. Number 7. Don't chase money, attract it. Robert explains that the rich don't chase money desperately. They build value, and money comes as a result. If you make yourself valuable through your skills, your mindset, your creativity, money naturally follows. The poor say, "I can't afford it." The rich say, "How can I afford it?" That one question opens your mind to solutions instead of shutting it down with fear. Number 8. Building generational wealth. True wealth isn't just for you, it's for your children and their children. Robert says Rich Dad's greatest gift wasn't money, it was mindset. He taught him how to think, how to solve problems, and how to see opportunities. If you pass those lessons forward, you're creating financial freedom that lasts for generations. Teach your kids early. Talk about money openly. Let them understand the power of choices. Because real legacy isn't cash, it's financial wisdom. Number 9. The mindset of abundance. In the end, everything comes down to mindset. Rich Dad's greatest belief was simple: there's enough for everyone if you think abundantly. Poor people saw money as something limited. Rich Dad saw money as something created. When you operate from abundance, you collaborate instead of compete. You build instead of envy. And most importantly, you create wealth that uplifts others. Number 10. The final lesson. Take responsibility. No matter where you are right now, rich, poor, or middle class, your financial future is in your hands. Stop blaming your job, the government, or luck. Stop waiting for someone to save you. The moment you take full responsibility for your finances, your life begins to transform. Quote, "You are richer than you think. You just have to awaken that power." So, as this audiobook comes to an end, remember, the goal is not to work for money, but to make money work for you. To break free from the cycle of fear and debt. To build assets that give you freedom, not just comfort. You now hold the same knowledge that separated Robert's two fathers, and the choice between them is yours. Every day is an opportunity to take one more step towards financial freedom. Every dollar is a tool. Every mistake is a lesson. Every moment is a chance to rise. So step forward with courage. Start building your assets. Start living your dream, not just working for it. Because as Rich Dad said, the difference between the rich and the poor is not how much they earn, it's how they think. And now you think like the rich.